Gordon Swaby, thank you so much for joining me again. I think the second time will be the charm. We won't need a third time.
For sure.
And everyone, this is Gordon Swaby, founder, CEO of
Co-founder.
EduFocal in Jamaica, doing big things. Co-founder, sorry, co-founder, CEO of EduFocal, doing big things. Um, about to take EduFocal public on the Jamaican Stock Exchange tomorrow, so that is massive. We're so excited to have him here and just really excited to dive into EduFocal's story. So, if you could, Gordon, give us a little bit of background on who you are, where you're from, and your journey to EduFocal.
Right, Colleen, thank you for having me. You've already mentioned my name. So I'm from Christiana, Manchester. So I'm born in Jamaica, grew up in Jamaica, I live in Jamaica. I grew up, in a small farming town, as I said, called Christiana. I went to a couple schools, but I primarily went to a school called Sacred Heart Academy. It's a Catholic school. Then I went to another school called Knox College, and then Homewood Technical, and then UTech, which I didn't really last long or stay long at UTech, which we can get into a little bit later. I have two brothers. I'm married to a beautiful wife, Kemisha Swaby, and we have a son together, and his name is Alexander Swaby. And that's a little bit about me, and I love cooking too. I'm a big chef in my dreams, but I do enjoy cooking. I'm pretty good at cooking, but I'm certainly no chef. I wouldn't call myself a chef.
We're all
That's right.
chefs, yeah.
That's the spirit.
So, so tell me a little bit about EduFocal. What is EduFocal, and how was it born?
So yeah, EduFocal is 10 years old tomorrow. Actually, we celebrate our 10th anniversary on March 15th, 2022. We also list on the Jamaica Stock Exchange on March 15, 2022. So we've been around for 10 years. We are an online learning platform. We help to prepare students for their exit examinations. We also offer corporate learning. So we offer corporate learning content. So we create corporate learning content for organizations, and we also provide a platform for companies who want to host that content, or if they already have content, they can leverage our proprietary platform to host the content. We've worked with the Transport Authority here in Jamaica, which is the entity responsible for regulating taxi drivers on the road. We, work very closely with the Ministry of Education here in Jamaica and a number of other entities. We use this concept called gamification, and gamification is using game-like elements in non-game contexts to make learning fun. And we effectively pioneered gamification in Jamaica, and it's something that we take great pride in. We take great pride in being innovators, and we're always, in our opinion, on the cutting edge of what's next in education, specifically edtech.
Very nice, very nice. So, tell us how did you get the idea for EduFocal? Like, why EdTech?
So I mean, entrepreneurship generally is a huge thing for me. I love this this idea of just creating something from nothing, and people using it. I mean, that's such an amazing thing, right? I don't call myself a creative, but certainly it is creating. And for me, entrepreneurship is the ultimate path of creation, right? This service that we're on was created by a savvy entrepreneur who decided that he or she decided that they wanted to scratch their itch or serve a need that exists, and here we are utilizing the service. EduFocal was the brainchild of myself and a cousin of mine called Luwayne, and Luwayne messaged me on Facebook one night with the idea, and his total contribution really was a PDF document, a one pager, and he was really working with me on this idea at the time called the Learning Center for about 2 weeks. But he was super busy with school. I guess it wasn't something that he saw as huge at the time or a priority for him. So he jumped off and he did something else. And from there I built up on the idea, spent a lot of my time on it, and we officially launched on March 15, 2012. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, Tell me a bit about what it's like building in Jamaica.
Good question.
You, I mean, it, yeah, like uh, building a tech startup, building a
Mm.
product, like building a community. Tell me how that process has been.
I mean, it's been a challenging process. It's a process that I have thoroughly enjoyed, otherwise, I would not have been doing it. Um, I've been doing it for, officially 12 years actually. I mean, well, officially 10 years, but unofficially 12 years because the company was actually registered on November 19th, 2010, a day after my 20th birthday. And, you know, think about the context of 2012 in Jamaica where, internet connectivity was not great. Still issues exist today. The kind of talent that you're looking for may not necessarily readily be available, or if it is available, it is extremely expensive in terms of human resources. Financing was extremely difficult or expensive, or impossible to get. So, unlike the US where the ecosystem is a little bit more mature, it's been a little bit different in Jamaica, but I do see things changing for the better. I mean, look, we're listing on the stock exchange, first company of its kind. So it's been difficult, but really rewarding, and we're happy to have made the kind of impact that we're making in this space.
Thanks. So let's talk about the product itself. You are a learning platform and you primarily serve children in grades 4 to
Mm-hmm.
6 who are getting ready for PEP, what these young people call it
Mm-hmm.
these days. There's GSAT in my days. I'm sticking to GSAT. But yeah, you help them. Uh, how was the reception initially to the product? Like, what was the MVP like? Getting it off the ground and getting like attention for
So
the
it was
product.
actually really good. I mean, we had a lot of governmental support. We had a lot of private sector support. And this is 2012, of course. And again, it was very heartening for me and a form of validation for what we're doing because it was novel, it was new. Um, we started out with CSEC, which is, the more advanced version of GSAT as it was known. And, the reception was great. We had math and English, and we had 100 questions in each subject. And people started signing up, started using the platform, and then they stopped and started panicking. We really were on the verge of shutting down the company at the time, and I came up with this idea of trying out GSAT, putting GSAT on the platform to see if younger kids would gravitate towards it more. And then we partnered with one of the two newspapers here in Jamaica, the large newspaper, the Jamaica Observer, and they gave us content. They paid us for placement in their paper, which is I guess a little ironic, right? Because usually it's the other way around. People are paying newspapers. But big up Adam Stewart from the Observer,
Yeah.
the ATL Group, Sandals, as they're known for. They really provided an avenue for us to get content, get exposure, and that was super helpful for us in the early days. It really opened up the door to getting access to more people and more people being familiar with the EduFocal platform. So the early days were challenging, but that was kind of part of our genesis, and really that has made me and the company, made me who I am today in terms of just tenacity and not giving up and pushing even when things get difficult. EduFocal experienced even greater growth, explosive growth at the start of the pandemic when schools closed, and some people would think that hey, it was an automatic thing for us to just benefit from that. No, we had to kind of reshuffle and rethink how we engage our students, and that is how we started to do live classes, and that's also how we ended up with our full-time online school. So the live classes are called EduFocal Plus, full-time classes called EduFocal Academy.
Okay, perfect. So that I have I have two questions coming from that, and let's go with this one
Mm-hmm.
first. So you talk about perseverance and not giving up, all of that stuff. And I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, how are you funding this? Like, so as you're building this, I'm sure this is not cheap. You are a grown up. You need money to care for
Absolutely.
yourself. You might have other obligations. Like, how are you funding this, building the company, and taking care of yourself and Jamaica is a really expensive place
Mm-hmm.
to live. So like, tell us about how you managed
So
all
I
of that.
mean, friends and family, mostly family in the early days, and then friends in the latter part. And at one point, we got an angel investor who came on board. He gave us 13,000 US dollars for 13% of the company, and then friends latter part, we had some friends who invested in the company, and then in 2021, Mayberry Investments Limited, which is the entity responsible for IPO, they put in a significant sum of money, and they would have done subsequent rounds since that time. But also, the company has been generating revenue since the beginning of the company. Not a lot in the early days, but things started to pick up significantly. So between financing, debt, equity financing, and our own sales, we've been able to survive, and I'm very, very thankful for that, because most companies, not only do they not survive, they certainly don't list on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. I mean, we'll be the 45th company to ever list on the stock exchange. It's not that many companies. It's a very, very prestigious circle to be in, and I believe that I'm also the youngest CEO to ever list a company ever in Jamaica, possibly even the Caribbean. So
That's cool.
that's yeah. I'm
That's
pretty yeah.
that's
I'm excited
really
about that. I mean, my theme, so I've been working on my speech tomorrow for the listing, and it's I talk a lot about rocket ships, right? And it's interesting because we have a pull-up banner and on it is a rocket ship. In our prospectus, there's a rocket ship, and I think that signals where our headspace is.
yeah.
And in my speech, and you're hearing some of it before, I'll actually read it to you, because I love it. Don't want to pat myself on the back, but I said,
Okay, yeah. No. Please go
yeah,
ahead. I was going to ask you if you wanted to drop us
yeah.
a
So
couple nuggets,
in
but
it, in it,
go ahead.
I say, while I'm not in space. Oh wait, no. So I said, recently, after realizing a childhood dream, traveling to space, Richard Branson said, "To all you kids down there, I was once a child with a dream, looking up to the stars. Now I'm an adult in a spaceship with lots of other wonderful adults looking down to our beautiful, beautiful Earth." And I go on to say, while I'm not in space, this is definitely our rocket ship. Listing on the JSE is a rocket ship that will allow us to soar to higher heights, not only realizing positive return for our shareholders, but acting as an inspiration and serving as an example for many entrepreneurs who believe that there's a slim or no chance of realizing their dreams. I'm an adult in a spaceship with 2,000 other shareholders, excited about the prospect of even more growth and accomplishment. So that's it for me. Where I mean, I don't know if you watched that
I
footage with Branson when he was up there and he was talking. For me, while I'm not in space, for me it's like a catalyst. It's a catalyst for change, because when you can see somebody who looks like you, who sounds like you, doing things that are not generally done, it is a big deal. And again, that's not me, because Jamaica has this culture of, well, you have to be humble. And this is not me not being humble. This is me saying, hey, this is something that is unusual, and I do want it to serve. Because I would have loved to see that when I was young. I want what I've done, I want what we've done to serve as an example for other people, whether young or old, and to show them that their dreams can be a reality. Yeah.
Being humble is overrated, Gordon. If you've done it, own it. Be proud. Did you see? I mean, just a side like tangent. Did you Snoop Dogg gave an acceptance speech at this award ceremony one time, and it was fantastic. I think it was the best speech in the in the voice of "There's no need to be humble when you are truly a badass." Because he was like, "I would like to thank me for doing the work, for being awesome." I mean, all that stuff. It was so funny, and I loved it. And also, Issa Rae is like, none of the people she knows are humble, and they're all
Yeah,
great.
but you see,
So
you're in
there's no need to
America,
be
right,
humble.
where things are a little bit different. And look, for me, there's a difference between humility and arrogance and hubris, in the sense that you can still talk about your accomplishments, and be humble about it. So, for example, for me, and you hear me say "for me" a lot, because I think it's important to contextualize. I'm not speaking on behalf of anybody else but me, right? But
Yeah.
it should be normalized to be able to speak about your own accomplishments. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't think I don't think I need to wait on somebody else to talk about what I've been successful at, because people would be okay with me talking about what I failed at, and I fail at a lot of things, you know. So
Yeah.
anyway, we digress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, 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 no. These are all very
Yeah.
valid points. So let's talk about the the edufocal community and the people
Mm-hmm.
you're serving, because like when I hear about the product that you're dishing up, there is a small, maybe cynical part of me that thinks this is only for rich people. Like, how does he keep this service accessible to everyone? In the Jamaican economy, and I mean in Jamaican schools, a lot of students don't, a lot of families don't have a lot of disposable income
Yeah.
to throw at extra classes and tutoring and all of that stuff. So tell me a little bit about how you manage to keep this service accessible, um, and um, and inclusive, I guess, to the Jamaican
So that's a
community.
great question, Colleen. And I'll tell you, I'll say this to you, right? When you think about education in Jamaica, it is a very much, or at least quality education, is very much a privileged thing, right? Even actually passing the exam and getting into your school of choice requires resources, and most kids don't have access to resources. One of the big problems we have in Jamaica, aside from ability to access resources, is numeracy and literacy. And for me, that's one of the charges I'm giving for myself at EduFocal, because our service is useless to somebody who can't read and write. Right? You can't use the internet generally if you can't read and write. Now, how are we doing this? You're absolutely right. Where we are right now, EduFocal is largely serving the needs of middle class kids, not even rich kids, because rich kids aren't really using EduFocal. It's middle class kids. And one of the things I'm passionate about is how the EduFocal Foundation, which we're launching soon, will be able to leverage our resources to help people to access our platform. And I'll give you an example how. So it's the first time we're talking about this publicly. So what I want to do is scale education through learning centers. And how that will work is it's a physical space that people go to, kids go to. They don't have to pay anything to go to the space because it's paid for by Jamaicans in the diaspora and at home. So you can pay for a child. So you, Colleen, for example, could go to EduFocal. You could pay for 5 kids, and they can actually go to the physical center, log on to the machines, get quality tutoring or tutelage from an educator, AC, nice machine, and you will actually get updates on their progress or lack thereof, right? And there's going to be diagnostics around it to see where they are. Maybe they need to learn how to, read better first. But the point is, why a physical space? One, because a lot of kids are in an environment at home that is not conducive to learning. Two, another thing that I want to tackle is, this is going to sound crazy, right? But nutrition. Because a kid can't, anybody really. For example, I haven't eaten all day and I'm pretty hungry now and it's hard to focus. And that's by choice, right? Can you imagine a child who hasn't eaten in over 24 hours, not because they don't want to, but because they have nothing to eat, right? So it's really thinking about the whole child. How can we serve the needs of the whole child? And one, it requires a physical space, because that's where we are now as a country in terms of you still need a hybrid approach, right? So the teacher isn't physically in the space. Who's in the space is a center manager. That person is responsible for guiding the processes. But, really, so we'll obviously, we're still fleshing a lot of this out, but the space will have a limit in terms of the amount of kids. We're actually partnering with an entity here in Jamaica to facilitate it, but we're very, very close to getting there. I'd say we're at least maybe 2 months away from starting this. And I know that many Jamaicans abroad will support this initiative, especially if there's transparency around it. And one of the reasons for this thing is positioning ourselves to be transparent, right? All of this stuff will be in our financials and how the money is used and so on and so forth, regular reports. So, what I'm doing is positioning EduFocal for the future. But yes, I could talk a very long time about this, but it's we don't want, it's not that we
No,
don't want kids who need access the most on our platform. It's just obviously we, even if we wanted to, we don't have the resources to facilitate them, because think about the barriers to entry for EduFocal. You need a good internet connection, you need a device, a tablet, a laptop, desktop computer. You need you need to be able to pay. So I could take away the ability to pay, and it'd still be problems. Bear in mind too, and I didn't mention this, is that we do work closely with the Ministry of Education, and they sponsor access for a lot of kids to the platform. But there again, there's still a lot of work to be done, and we continue to work with the ministry to solve these problems.
No, I mean it's a big topic. I mean, and it's something that is close to me because I have family back in Jamaica, and I mean I saw the disparity between what people who had access to computers and internet versus didn't have access to internet during the pandemic. It created a huge disparity in the education, and I mean in Jamaica there's already a lot of wealth inequality. So then I can just imagine that, like, that it's even more evident in a service like
this. Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah, and I mean, a little bit more on that topic. You talked about the academy and having 50 or so full-time enrolled students. Tell me about that, because I feel like that's very unique for Jamaica, and I'd love to know what kind of students, what kind of demographic is that serving? What students come to full-time online school, and how is that meeting the government requirements for their education? Because I'm sure you have to answer to the Ministry of Education for these children. So tell me a little bit about how that works.
So it's clear who we're serving, because if you think about it, right, you need to have a comfortable space to go to your virtual school in. You need quality internet, you need a quality computer. So I mean, even without doing a survey, I can tell, and we've never done a survey. I mean, we have students who, we are, kind of trying to position to sponsor access for this online school. But yeah, it is again the middle class demographic that we're catering to, which is not really the demographic that needs the help the most, if I'm being completely frank. What was the other part of your question?
And I guess like how that schooling meets the government requirements.
Yeah, so I mean we have a
the education
so we have a standardized curriculum similar to, so we're similar to a physical school, except that we don't have four walls. Everything is the same. So we still do field trips, and we have a lot coming, but we're very similar to a physical school, except that we don't have a physical space.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I never thought that Jamaica would be the kind of place where people would enroll their children full-time online. Like, I never thought that would be a thing.
Yeah, I think the world has changed. I think the pandemic has changed a lot of things. And think about it. There's an entire generation of students that were raised online right now, in terms of that was how they were doing a lot of things. 2 years, right?
Yeah.
So some people hate it, obviously.
Yeah, 2 years is a lot in a child's life.
So things have changed. Yeah. Some people hate it, some people love it,
Yeah. So, and if you don't mind my asking, what's like the general age range for people?
No, absolutely not. You're talking about anywhere between 9 to 11 years old, yeah? Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, nice. That's very cool. So let's talk a little bit more about the building process in terms of raising funds versus bootstrapping. Talk about, like, I mean, in the US, I think there's a lot more access to VC funds and angel investing and all of that stuff. But in Jamaica, I would imagine it's very different. And like, how did you raise VC funds? And if not, how did you keep the company afloat as you were building?
So between loans, I don't want to use the word VC because it has a very strict definition. But between debt financing and equity financing, we've raised well over $1 million US. It was never VC, it was more angel, right? So I've largely had friends who have invested in the company, and one of our largest investors is an entity, but it's not VC, because VC really is a pool of funds from wealthy investors, and so it does not meet the strict definition of what VC is. So we've never raised VC money, but we've been able to grow the company through debt, equity, and our own revenues. Yeah.
Nice. What about things like accelerators or incubators or any kind of like
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurship, like mentorship programs? Was that available to you while you were building
Yeah,
the
so we were
company?
part of something called the Branson Center of Entrepreneurship. That's where I guess I got my entrepreneurial training. A lot of value I've ever. So I'd say one of the most profound things that I've received from the Branson Center of Entrepreneurship was this thing called the business model canvas. And the business model canvas, is a great way of visualizing how to kind of flesh out a business. But in terms of an incubator, then there was that. There was also the Technology Innovation Center, which was an incubator of sorts and also a space for us to house our office. And we were there for many years. We were there for 7 years, really, a long time. I think we moved out right before COVID happened. So we moved out in 2019. Yeah.
Mm, yeah, nice. So, what made you decide to take the company public?
So, there are many reasons that we decided to go public. I mean, one main reason is access to financing is cheaper, but we also get more buying more buying, more visibility. I mean, we check so many boxes. It forces us to become a better run organization. So, one of the things that we benefited from a lot since being on this path to going public is that we've tightened up a lot of our internal processes. And I'm not saying that we're perfect. We're not perfect by any means, but certainly in terms of ability to produce our financial results quickly, having systems and processes in place around how we do things. All of those things have improved significantly, and we just continue to get better. And the company is benefiting from that. We've also, our balance sheet is largely intangibles, and I can't take that to the bank and say, hey, use this as collateral. However, as a listed company, access to financing is far cheaper, and that is going to be a big, big benefit to us. So, yeah. But we have
Nice.
2,415
So,
shareholders now. That's a lot of people. Um, People who I don't know, a lot of them, but those are people who have a vested interest in EduFocal doing it. And of course, people are in it for money and whatever, and that's fine, that's the point, right? And some people will sell and some people will buy, which is
yeah,
the whole point of a marketplace. But there are shareholders who will hold on to their shares because they believe in the vision and the mission of the company.
nice. And how has the platform been received amongst the teacher community in Jamaica?
Mm.
Have you gotten any pushback?
Yeah.
Have you been able to recruit from the
Oh,
teacher
absolutely.
pool? What's that
So things
relationship
have
like?
improved significantly over the years. In the early years, a lot of teachers would say no, they don't understand this thing, they're not interested. But I'd say within the last 4 years, right before COVID, there about 4 years, 3, 4 years, things have improved significantly. But we get our content from teachers, right? And we've always paid teachers for content, so that's
Yeah,
always been a big thing for us. And we maintain and continue to have good relationships with a lot of schools and teachers.
very nice, very nice. So, you've obviously, I mean, this is a huge
Thank
accomplishment.
you.
If you could distill the journey into a few bullet points to help along the next entrepreneur behind you, because I mean, what you've done is, I think, so some Jamaicans might feel like if they didn't see you doing it, they would have thought that was
Mm.
impossible, you know? So, like, well, how would you, what if you had to distill like a small set of advice to give to somebody coming up behind you, like, what would that
Ignore the
be?
noise, focus and execute. That's my mantra. Actually, I came up with it, and it's like a rallying cry for me. And I'll break down what each part means. So ignoring the noise for me means having great conviction in what you're doing, holding on to it, ensuring that, listen, once you can live to fight another day, then you've not lost, right? Um, Ignoring the noise means ignoring naysayers, ignoring people who don't believe in the vision, whether it's family or friends. It means not being distracted by that next big thing that comes along, right? That's for me what ignoring the noise means, which is what I've done, which is exactly what I've done for the last 10, 11 years. Focusing means that it's one thing to ignore, it's another thing to actually focus on doing it, right? Because you can start and then you get distracted and you start and stop. There's a big difference between complacency and patience, and it's important to not confuse the two, right? So the first part is ignoring the noise. The second part is focusing, which is, in my opinion, self-explanatory. And the last part is the most important part, in my opinion. Execute. You have to do, right? You can do all of your analysis and, surveys and whatever, but at the end of the day, if you aren't actually doing, if you're not executing, then, what's the point? So those three things for me are really a synopsis of what I've done over the years. And if you fall off, jump back on, right? If you fall off that wagon, jump back on that wagon, because tomorrow is another day. And I've had my tough days. Every day is tough, but I am focused on the bigger picture. I'm focused on the bigger mission, which is creating value for people. And if we were not creating value for people, then we would not be around today. Yeah.
Makes sense. In one of our previous conversations, you mentioned that you dropped out of UTech, and you actually asked your dad if it was okay for you to take some time off. And I'm sure it would come as a shock to any Jamaican student that your father said, yes, sure, it takes some time off.
I think my dad saved the company.
That is so unique. I would love for you to talk about that.
I'm saying that I think him telling me yes saved the company, because it one thing, and I'll tell you, that my dad has always been excited about the company, has always believed that he could go places. And why I asked for time off from school was, at that time I was still dependent on my parents, right? They're still dependent on them for money. So I could not have done it without his support, or their support, my mother and my father. So me asking him that question was me saying, listen, we have a shot here. I want to take advantage of it. And, he said yes. I'm not even sure if he remembers that moment, but definitely I owe him a lot for telling me yes. It's a big, and my father's on my board, and I've only gotten good advice from my father since day one. He's been on my board since we started the company. He's been a director of the company from day one. Yeah, so I don't want it to seem like I have a favorite or anything. I love both my parents, but obviously my father has been a little bit more involved from that perspective, and that part of the story is a key part of the story.
Yeah, I mean, and it's, I don't know if Jamaican parents are like trembling now. Like, I hope this pitney don't come ask me to leave school. But that is so, it's unique. It is huge. I mean, kudos to your dad for seeing that vision and kind of like giving you that support to go ahead with it. That's great.
Thank you.
So you talked about co-founders. Tell me a little bit about your co-founders and how you formed those relationships.
So my one co-founder, Paul Allen, is from St. Anne. He's a little bit older than me. He's 34. I met Paul at an event that I pitched EduFocal at in 2011, I believe, called Kingston Beta. It was run by Ingrid Riley. So it's no longer around, it's no longer a thing, but it was such a critical part of the tech community in Jamaica. And I pitched that event because I was so excited about pitching this and letting people know what it is that I was doing. And then Paul walked up to me afterwards and said he wanted to join the company. It was still really just an idea at the time, and he gave me his time and energy, and now Paul is rich. So I'm always grateful.
It's great.
It is a great story. Man. I mean, I'm not sure if you've actually read our prospectus yet, but it's a great read. If you get some time, you should probably read it. It's there, available for the public. A lot of information is in it. Yeah.
Don't call me out, Gordon. I haven't read it yet, but don't call me out. I'll read it soon. I'll read it tonight.
Yeah. So that's kind of. I mean, not to kill that Paul story right just about yet. Paul and I didn't get along for many years. I mean, we literally could not stand each other. We just had no chemistry. It was really tough. But in the latter years, we started to click a lot more, and the company benefited from that. It just shows you that everything in life is not black and white. You'll have in any relationship you're in, whether it's a marriage, whether it's friendship, but it's a business partnership. You're going to have challenges, and you have to have that conviction. I mean, speaking to marriage specifically, there's a saying, you have to make your marriage work. It's not going to work on its own. You have to put in the effort. There are going to be tough days. There are going to be days where you're like, oh my God, you have to push through. And I feel like Paul and I have been married for a very long time. I love Paul. Paul is great. You see me blushing talking about Paul, right?
Yeah. The co-founder relationship is special, man, because you spend so much time with your co-founder.
I've spent 11 years.
Yeah, it really is a marriage.
Man, it's been a long time, long journey. But yeah, here we are today.
Nice. So let's talk a little bit more about family, because that is a topic that's come up a few times in my interviews recently. I've met many successful founders over the past few weeks, and invariably the topic comes up of how to keep your family, your wife, your children, your husband, how to keep them all a priority while you are grinding away at possibly the most difficult thing you've ever done. Talk about how that worked for you.
I mean, that was very tough for me. I mean, more tough. Well, it was tougher back in the day than it is now, to be honest with you. But particularly during the pandemic, I mean, my wife and I, we got married November 2019. She got pregnant on wedding night. Yeah, she got, and then, so look at this timeline, right? November 2019, COVID happened March 2019, right? So that's November, December, January, February, March. At this point, she was pregnant. Right, and then our son came in August 2019, and it was our son came November 2019, and then COVID happened March 2020. Our son came in August 2020. And that year was the year we experienced so much growth, our greatest growth. We moved from 26 million in revenue, Jamaican dollars, to 102 million in revenue, and I mean, that was crazy, a crazy time. And I, spend so much time in this office that I'm in right now talking to you. And my pregnant wife would come to me and give me food because I was so caught up in work. So, she deserves all of the blessings that she's gotten and is to come. And really has been a rock. Just to say, my son has been supportive, in his own way. At his very young age, has acted as a source of inspiration for me in terms of his just natural curiosity and a reminder for me in terms of what I'm working, why I do what I do for my family. My parents, my brothers have all been supportive, goes without saying. But yeah, family is key for me in terms of any success. Friendship is also important. It's good to have good friends. Many times when we didn't have any money, I, would WhatsApp my rich friends, ask them for money, say, yo, help you out, now we need some money. So yeah, it's a great story. That's a really, really great story. And it's a real story. Real story, I mean, not made up.
I mean, it's so, I mean, it really is phenomenal.
Thank you.
And so I want to talk about what are the plans for 2022? I mean, obviously going public is a big deal. But in terms of like a grander vision for 2022, what do you have in mind?
I can't say much because again we're about to become a publicly listed company. But just know that we're growing aggressively. We're looking at a lot of opportunities. If I was an unlisted company, I'd tell you exactly what we're doing. But if I share it here and not, I might get in trouble. So. This is my practice, right? But in the prospectus we talk about expanding our exam types, the kind of exams that we cater to, building out the business side of the company aggressively. So we have a lot of plans. I mean, things are in motion now, and I think over the next couple of quarters people will see exactly what it is that we're doing.
Thanks. Sorry, I'm checking my questions to see if I asked you everything. I think I did. I mean, so I guess I'll just open up the floor now for you to tell me. I mean, just talk about anything. If I haven't like hit on a topic that's on your
Yeah.
mind, go ahead. It's like
No,
a
no. I
freestyle,
mean, listen.
so
We've.
or you can ask me
Uh,
questions too if
no,
you
no, no. I
want.
mean, I think that we've covered. I think you've hit all of the right notes. I think. Well, I'll ask you a question so we can switch roles. I mean, from the outside looking in, but having the context you have. So you're Jamaican, but you live abroad, and you have a specific focus in tech. How do you see the current environment in Jamaica in terms of the tech scene? And who do you think are the large players in the space right now?
Well, I mean that part is easy. Clearly,
Yeah,
you.
I'm just
I
one
mean,
person in the
I
space.
think if there's any, to be fair, like part of the reason this my platform has come to be is because it's for lack of that knowledge. Like I was curious about what was going on in Jamaica and in the Caribbean in general in the tech scene because I'm very plugged into the startup scene here in the US and I wasn't getting a lot of news. And I was like, what's going on? Who are the big players? And I was using my links in tech to like talk to people, and like follow people on Twitter. I think I learned about you because I follow Kyle Maloney on Twitter. And I know Kyle
Cool.
Maloney from school, so it was kind of like a chain
Mhm.
reaction. Yeah. But from the outside looking in, I think with all things in Jamaica, it looks like it's a difficult place to start something. It's a difficult place to have the breathing room to take risks because Jamaica is such a hard place. It's an expensive place to live, and people are really like struggling just to take care of themselves on a very basic level. And then, like you said, the access to funds isn't there. I mean, we've talked about how people like all over the place just picking up $20 million in funding here and $50 million in funding here. I think I've interviewed 2 or 3 founders from the US in the past week, and they've all raised like 30 plus $1 million, and I don't see numbers like that getting thrown around in the Caribbean tech scene. So and I've seen people like Kyle in Tech Beach trying to put more resources into the region and get people more, just a little bit more. But I'm still learning. I'm really interested to like meet more founders from Jamaica and the Caribbean. Learn what the pain points are. Obviously, the number one pain point is money. I mean, money just does not flow through the startup scene the way it flows through the US startup scene. So there's money, there's resources, there's knowledge, there's all of these things that I'm seeing that the Caribbean can use more of, and it just needs people to pay attention.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, those are some interesting points. I don't think money is the number one problem, to be honest with you, because here's what. Most folks who raise money in the US in tech fail, right? That's just the sad truth. Most companies fail. And raising that money does not mean that you have, and that's the weirdest. So there's this thing that they have called unicorns. And I always found the definition of a unicorn weird because the definition of a unicorn is a company that is valued at $1 billion US or more. Now, you are valued at a US billion or more based on the money that you raise, based on your last valuation. But is that the true source of success? Why are we not talking more about customers, right? So I could understand if a unicorn is considered a company that's doing $1 billion US in revenue or more, or billion in profit. But yeah, like it's not that, in my opinion, it's not that. And I mean, this is not downplaying your other guests, right? It's certainly not. I'm not targeting anybody, but if you're in a system where, listen, I remember in 2012 when we started, a seed round was like 10,000 US. A seed round in the States right now is like 20 million US. Like, it's madness, right? And I mean, there's a lot of conversation about this bubble, this tech bubble in the States and whatever and so on and so forth. But my thing is, I think we need to focus less on funding and more on customers. And let me contextualize it a bit more. A founder needs the basic things. You think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. A founder needs basic things to be able to focus on the company. The ability to eat every day, to have a safe space, if you're focusing on a tech company, which I've said, access to internet, a good computer, so on and so forth. I'm privileged to have grown up, in a middle class home, so I've always had access to a safe space to, to think about these things, and I understand that I'm not like most founders, right, or at least most founders in Jamaica anyway. So big up to the guys in the US and and doing what they're doing. But for me, true success is when you can do a lot with little. And by any measure, EduFocal is a juggernaut now in its own way. And now we're well positioned to not only have an impact in Jamaica but elsewhere. So look out for more from us is all I'll say. We have a lot of big plans. You'll see a lot of news soon. But we're doing some stuff, and I'm excited.
No, I'm excited for
Thank
you
you.
guys. I have no doubt that y'all have big things coming
Thank you.
up. And I mean, I consider part of my job is kind of like being a little voice in the diaspora, like blasting
Yeah.
out the news. So when you're ready to announce, just give me a call,
Definitely.
give me a link, and I will help you
Thank you.
announce
Thank
it to
you
the
for
world.
that. Well, yeah, that's it from
But
me. I mean,
thank you
no
so
problem.
much, Gordon. This has been a lovely conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. Congrats on your achievements. Stay in touch.
Yeah, and I mean,
and
congrats
I'm
on your
looking forward
marriage,
to
by the way.
seeing
Congrats
everything
on
that
marriage.
y'all
Marriage is
do.
a beautiful thing, so,
Oh,
yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I got married
Oh,
last
nice.
year. And it's been a wild
Yeah,
ride.
marriage is work. Make it
Thanks.
work. All right,
Yeah.
Colin. Thank you very much. Take care.
Yeah, it really
Come on.
is.
Bye.
Bye.